Hi, I'm Kaya. I started my business, Beyond Therapy, because I know what it's like to do everything right and still be in deep emotional pain. I suffered for years with intense emotions and painful relationships. And by my 40s, married with children, I was yelling at my kids and my husband. I was ruining holidays. I threatened to leave my marriage a dozen times, and I didn't like who I was being. And all of this despite the fact that I was doing everything you're supposed to do. I was in therapy. I was journaling. I was meditating, doing communications classes, affirmations, even shamanic techniques. And while all of them helped in one way or another, the deeper patterns never changed. I still felt unheard, unimportant, and I began to despair that I would ever find lasting happiness. Luckily, I didn't give up. And I started to look outside of these tools and techniques. I was a holistic health practitioner and body worker for over 30 years. And during that time, I'd become fascinated with the emotional sources of physical issues. Also, during that time, I went to India and studied spiritual awakening and emotional clearing. And I began to weave these ideas, these techniques together into a way of interacting with my own emotions that was radically different. And things started to shift. I was no longer managing my emotions or my triggers. I was clearing them at the root. Years of processing my childhood trauma had not been able to do this. And I was able to heal my childhood trauma once and for all. But there was more. The painful relationships and the patterns started to dissolve. Literally, I stopped having these kinds of experiences. It wasn't just me. They stopped showing up in my life. So now I'm feeling more emotionally stable and seeing real change in my relationships. And I knew I had to share this with women like myself who are working so hard and have been working so long, but are still in pain and thinking it's their fault. It's not your fault. It never was. I went back to school in my 50s to get my master's of clinical mental health counseling from Northwestern. And I focused while I was there on the intersection of trauma, neuroscience, and mindfulness. Meanwhile, on my own, I was studying what had worked for me and why everything else hadn't been able to produce the same kind of results. And here's what I found. Most approaches help you understand and cope, but they don't stop the cycle. There are some essential missing pieces, not the least of which is that they're based in a system that doesn't align with how emotions actually work and actually heal. My approach is aligned with this organic healing process, and I call it awakened emotional intelligence, or awakened EQ for short. It is simple, but amazingly powerful. It heals what's underneath, and it changes what actually shows up in your relationships. Today, I work with men and women around the country by Zoom, individually and in groups. And I'm particularly drawn to working to individuals who do have years of personal growth experience, but are still getting hurt and triggered in their relationships and don't understand why all their hard work isn't working. By guiding them and coaching them in Awakened EQ, I am so gratified to see their lives changing. They are no longer getting triggered in the same way. They are no longer caught in the same painful relationship patterns. And they are no longer attracting the same problems in people. They are finally able to experience that peace we are all looking for and that deep, fulfilling connection that we all yearn for, but for so many of us has felt out of reach. You can now get what you've always wanted through this work. So if any of this resonates with you, give this video a like, follow me here on YouTube, and I will be sharing with you more about how Awakened EQ works and how it can change your relationships and your life. Thank you.